First, we have Mike Slaughter, who is with Slaughter and Associates. I guess I should call him in order. But anyway, Mr. Slaughter is with Slaughter and Associates, who've been working on our annexation, possible annexation, proposed annexation, pretty much for over a year now. And so we think we are very close to a proposal that will be something the board can support. So he has worked up some more numbers, worked up another area, and has a presentation to make. So he has come today to help us with that. We have a handout, and he has his PowerPoint is up on the board there for everyone to see. And Mike, I'll just turn it over to you if you would be so kind, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'm Mike Slaughter, as the Mayor mentioned, with Slaughter and Associates. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And this meeting, a presentation today, is to provide information that the board requested last year at the last meeting I attended downstairs. There were a couple of areas, I'm going to go over those, and provide the information that was requested, such as the demographic data, assessed value, tax data, sales tax, and financial data as well. And I've got the maps to go along with that. I do have an electronic version of the presentation up here on the screen. You also have an exact copy of it in front of you. As we proceed through this, certainly if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me before we get started. And there should be a map in the back of yours, but
While you're setting that one up, Joel, let me say before I forget that we want to make sure that he's got the PowerPoint. Let's capture that and put that out on the website. It'll be here with the Facebook, but let's make sure we have that as something people can click on and then expand. So thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last meeting I attended, it was requested that we study Area A, which the boundary you can see in red here, and it's in the salmon color, but it also goes back down 182 and ties back into the city along this narrow corridor here. I'm going to flip to the next map, but I want you to see, we've got to zoom in, which makes it easy, but I want you to see this relative to the entire city first, and then I've got to zoom in. If you'll recall quickly, we had some areas here we were studying, just a small area to the north. Here we were studying, and this area was coming on down and wrapping around. And at the last meeting, we were requested to study Area A and B together, and then Area A alone, and that's what I'm going to present to you. Now, the next map will make it a little bit clearer in that it has the zoom in of this area. You can see it better. Also, we have the existing land use on it. If you see the salmon color on this map, that means that's mostly vacant land, other than we have right-of-way here along the highways. But there's mostly vacant land with exception of inside the right-of-ways. But you can see the yellow are single-family homes. The orange would be multifamily. You can see it would be multifamily here, a few right here. Commercial is in the red. You can see that along the highways, Highway 182, where you have most of the commercial. There's a little bit scattered off of that. Industrial would be in purple, and blue would be churches, public, semi-public type uses. And we have those depicted here. We have a business list of all the businesses located in the area. So that's what this presentation, and we'll go through both of these and give you the demographic as well as the financial data on that.
Before you leave that map, Mike, let me ask you just a question. And we can ask questions as we go along here, but in particular, when you've got that area in between, what is it, whatever that is, maybe the railroad or something, anyway, between the big area, right there where your pin is, come to the right, no, down, over to the right, up,
That large sum and
That
covered
large
area, I think
area
she's
that you
saying.
pointed
Yeah,
out.
there you go.
All I wanted to do was let you give us your explanation of why, if that's, so agricultural or so vacant, why you made that line adjustment there. Was it following a property line? Was it following a section line? What was it? That's all.
correct.
Sorry.
This is, according to the tax map, this is a parcel.
Okay.
An entire parcel. So when you see us stepping up here, and then this sort of little odd stepping here, that is following parcel lines.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Okay.
just be
That's
clear
right.
about, but that one in particular was large enough that I wanted to kind of
Right.
highlight it, so.
And of course, it's along Highway 82 here, and certainly would, with proper access and all, have potential for development being fronting along 82 and not far from 182 as well. Most of these, if you see it, we're either following parcel lines, section lines, quarter section lines, or right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Is what we're following there. All right. All right, if no further questions, we'll go ahead and proceed. Slide 2, you can see it has our 2018 population estimates for the city at a little over 25,000 population. Area A, you can see, only has, in this area, has only an estimated population of 245. Area B has much more population, it's right at 1,800 in population, which would push the enlarged city to be slightly over 27,000 in population. Next slide, similar graphics as the population. That just gives you the information regarding dwelling units. If a mobile home is one dwelling unit, an apartment complex with 32 units in it, obviously would be 32 dwelling units. So you can see the comparison between A and B as far as the dwelling units. And this information is important when we're assessing the needs from the police department, fire department, and public works and those sorts of services. Next, we have the racial composition of the total population for the existing city. Area A, which is the one with the fewest, least amount of population. Area B, you can see the racial composition of white, black, and other, and then the combined city and study areas. The existing city is approximately 34.6% black population. The enlarged city would be 34.1%, very close to what it is right now, including both of those areas. Slide 5 is the same information except it's for voting age. I provide this information in case there's questions about it, but if any city in Mississippi were redistricting today for whatever reason, we'd have to use the 2010 population census, and the total population would be what we would balance out in the redistricting. Obviously, come 2021, after the census block data is out, everyone's going to be looking at the need to determine if they need to redistrict or not. Slide 6 compares the land area, the total land area. The existing city is about 25.6 square miles. Area A.
Before we leave the racial composition, we're looking at a change from 30, if we were to go with the A and B combined, we're looking at a difference of, that's 0.5%, am I?
That's correct,
Okay.
0.5%.
Just make sure I'm.
And it's basically 0.5% whether you're looking at total or voting age.
Okay.
It's very, very minimal.
Okay.
Very minimal. Slide 6, the existing city has 25.6 square miles. Area A, 1.9. Area B is 1.2 square miles. So what does that give you? About 3.1 square miles we're adding, which would bump it up to about 28.7 square miles total.
And
Yes, ma'am.
this is an unfair question because you may or may not know this, but when they did the annexation in 1998, do you know how many square miles, how that changed at that time? I told you it was an unfair question.
It was
Okay.
very fair, I just don't know that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, because it was a significant
It
increase.
looks like a large amount.
I'm gonna tell you, and I haven't researched that, but we could easily, if we were furnished a map or had access
Yeah,
to
it'd be
what was
easy to
annexed,
figure.
we could easily calculate that.
Well, and not only that, you don't have to, we can go back to the documents, which are readily available, and it'll say how much the increase
This
is.
seems much more discreet than the 98.
Oh, it's clearly.
You know, I
so.
wanted you to see the initial map relative to the enlarged, the whole city, because it is much more conservative annexation, I believe. When you look at this, just compared to one part of the city, it looks like it's a large area, but when you look at the entire city, I believe this is, in my opinion, a conservative annexation area. Yes, sir.
Mike, on looking at A, that's, seems like much more commercial and not a whole lot of residential.
Right.
Would there be problems in your experience if someone were to just go that route, or is it better to have more residential if you're going to be annexing? Does it matter?
Every city is, the answer is no, sir, it does not, but I'll elaborate briefly. Every city is different, and they have different needs, and you can also have a phased annexation, but I'll tell you, a little town in the Delta, Port Gibson, they were needing sales tax. There was a lot of commercial growth outside their city limits, McDonald's and other things, which was a big deal for them. They were losing like $125,000 a year from just sales tax diversion alone, and we were able to annex that, and that makes a huge difference. At that time, they weren't wanting to take in a lot of residential because they wanted to do the commercial first, and then at some point come back and do that. I think that's probably one reason this board has me studying both A and B together, as well as A separately. But in my opinion, I'm gonna jump the gun just a little bit since you stopped. I think both of these areas are reasonable for the city of Starkville, and I would recommend the city seriously considering both of these. But if you decide to do one or the other, that's just.
I want to ask this question, I might have missed this, but what's the benefit of Area A alone? I mean, by going through the process, what would be the benefit of Area A? It's such a small, I mean, increase in population, such a small 1.2 square miles.
Sales tax. Yeah.
Well, yes, and let me add more.
Planning.
Well,
Planning,
that, but let me add to it. If we go with Area A, it keeps us from being blocked at any point in time, because you set a narrow little window between, yeah, right there, that's between the two university pieces. If somebody wanted to come and say, we're gonna incorporate and we're gonna stop right there, we would be forever impaired from ever moving further to the east without going way up, around, over, across, under, et cetera, et cetera. So
See
it's a defensive block.
And
Or an
it's also-
offensive block.
It's also, in my mind, a gateway corridor area through
Oh, it's
there.
absolutely, yes,
And
that's the.
And that
Yeah.
interchange needs to be lit up. That's the first entrance you see as you're coming in, which is dark when you're coming in from the east.
It matters,
And,
yeah.
You know, and if somebody wants to exit off there, it's just, that's the first thing you see is a dark entrance as you come into Starkville. And most people think that is Starkville when you turn off there.
They think almost
So-
everything, it's dense.
And we can control how it looks and, you know, as it grows and protect our growth to the east.
The split between A and B is 82.
And you can look, this red line that comes
Oh.
right down through here is what it is. So basically, it's the south line of 182, with exception, we pick up the commercial here and then get back on the right of way.
Thank you.
Here's what that is. But this area obviously has the major transportation corridors, which, and not surprisingly, has most of the commercial because of that. And has potential for future growth as well along here. This area is more of a residential area, obviously, and we're gonna see that in the graphics when we get to that.
Sorry, thank
I've
you.
got a comparison of Area A and B from the graphics standpoint.
Well, and to be quite honest, when they annexed in 1998, that was the anticipation, was that you would have that growth along the 82 bypass area. And why they didn't go ahead with the magnitude of the original annexation, they didn't go ahead and go to, and get that part, I don't quite understand. But that is one of the things that I have talked about over the years with the police chief, because there's that little section that isn't in the city that they end up being on because it's on the bypass there. And
Right.
so it makes sense that that would continue to be growth area for us. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
All right. Slide 7 is just a comparison of street miles. We utilize this information in our Public Works Department assessment on providing services per mile of street inside the, in the study area. So you can see the comparison there. Now, here's where we're getting to the existing land use, slide 8. And we break it out for area A first. And if I may step around, you can see area A has 47, it looks like a lot compared here, but it has 47 single family, 48 multifamily. And you can keep that in mind, mobile homes, I misspoke. 47 single family, 48 mobile homes, and 37 multifamily, but 16 commercial. If you could flip to the next one, you can see here there's 195, even though the bar chart is lower because we've got so many multifamily, 500 multifamily, 86 mobile homes, and 195 in single family, and only 4 commercial in area B. So I wanted you to see the difference in the graphics there. If we'd have kept the same scale, you could have really been able to see that. But the numbers are still there, where this one is more, especially multifamily housing and single-family housing, as well as some mobile homes. Very a small amount of commercial is 4.
I think the reason for that multifamily is because the retreat is in there, and that's
Right.
that is a brand new multifamily unit, or it's a complex more than anything else.
Next, we have on slide 10, the estimated assessed valuation and ad valorem taxes for study area A. The total assessed value, we have slightly over 3.2 million. From the general fund, your current tax levy would generate about $83,000 for the general fund. The downtown business district has 2 mills. I don't know how that would be separated up, but right now, based on the assessed value, that would generate another $6,200 for a total of $89,618. If you go to slide 11, you can see that area B has 11.5 million in assessed value. The general fund would generate $293,000. The downtown district would generate $22,000, or a total of $315 in total taxes there. The next slide would be the sales tax diversion. Sales tax diversion, and we received this information from the Department of Revenue, is for area A, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 125, 130,000. It varies. It went down slightly for area A and B, but is in the neighborhood of, in 2017, we had 134,000 in that diversion. 2018 had 122. I don't know if they missed something or what happened there, but there's some significant sales tax out there as well. When you get down to area B, it drops down to approximately, in round numbers, $29,000, $30,000 in sales tax diversion.
Let's go back, Lisa, as it relates to that downtown corridor, they would pay only that part that is impacted. So unless we raise the millage, they're still gonna pay the same thing they're paying now. That doesn't factor in.
And I'm not sure that that's the downtown business district. I
Is that-
believe that may be the 2% from the
I
hotels
don't
and
think any of it would be
Okay.
I
in that
think it's,
area.
2%.
I think you just got it labeled wrong. I think
Okay.
that's what we
Well,
talked
and
about,
so
the
let's
2%
see about
hotel.
clearing that up, because those numbers, after a while they add up, so.
Yeah, well, and the reason we broke those out, we pulled them off the tax levy, and I qualified that one. That one may not apply on that. I know the general city fund
Oh,
would
sure,
apply.
yeah, but the downtown business district is a delineated district that
Okay.
is taxed at the city rate,
Okay.
plus 2 or whatever it is, so I
And
don't
then
think that would.
it wouldn't be
Yeah,
impacted.
okay, that's what I want to make sure of.
But this may be the 2% off the hotels and the restaurants in
I don't
those
think
areas.
so.
No,
This
I
is
don't
just
think
ad
that's, I
valorem.
think that's just,
included
yeah, I
in
think
the
that's just
general?
ad valorem.
Okay. I thought you were
But I'm
breaking
not
that
sure
out.
that the sales tax is picking up the 2%. I'm not sure that the sales tax is
What the
picking up
sales
the
tax?
2%, which is the add-on for food and beverage.
Well,
would
and you would
not-
only have that on, a couple of,
There's a couple, there's a
Yeah,
hotel and a.
yeah.
But it
buffet.
would not, because
It's the 2%.
they told me the diversion, just for the 7% sales tax, you get 18.5% of the
Right.
7%
Right.
back. So this would not include any of that.
So I guess what I'm saying is they may offset.
That's right. They could offset, that's true. Next, the departmental request for annexation study areas A and B. We're gonna go through general government, police department, fire, community development, engineering and street sanitation, and environmental services. If you go to slide 14, from general government, there would be no, for areas A and B, no additional personnel or equipment needed. We'd have funds in there for redistricting, and of course, there's an additional county fee for property tax collection. Area A only is very similar, the same scenario there.
Well, and note, we're gonna be redistricting when this new census comes out,
One way or the other.
ain't one way or the other, so that.
That's right.
We need to
And-
remember to build that in too.
Yeah,
Next
and,
year.
and we put
Yeah.
a little money in there because, hey, if you redistrict, you're gonna have a little additional area to
Sure.
redistrict, so we just didn't
Yeah.
wanna ignore that. For the police department on slide 15, A and B, would be 5 additional full-time patrol officers, 5 fully equipped cars, as well as the weapons, uniforms, equipment, and everything they would need to hit the streets. Area A only, because of the fewer, less amount of population. We have 1 full-time officer, 1 fully equipped car, as well as all equipment necessary for him to operate. Next slide.
We put a dollar figure on those 5 outfitted officers with equipment.
It comes up later.
Okay.
Yes, it's gonna come up later, you're exactly right. Fire department, meeting with Mr. Ty Wyndham with the rating bureau. There's no additional personnel or equipment required to maintain your current fire rating and apply that fire rating to the annexation study areas. I think I have a map here. You can see the areas in white are class 10. The city of Starkville is a class 4. So that would be a significant change in fire rating going from a 10 to a 4 in the areas that are white. This East Octavia Fire Protection District is a class 7, which covers a portion of this. So this would go from a 7 to a 4, which would be significant savings.
Big for those commercial businesses. that's
For the
big.
commercial businesses especially. Once you get to a 6, anything lower really doesn't benefit residential. From a 7 to a 6 does only on frame construction. 7 to a 6 on masonry is the same recommended rate by the rating bureau. But once you get to a 6, it helps the commercial and industrial there. On community development, slide 17, A and B, no additional personnel or equipment needed. We'll put funds in there for the comprehensive plan update and to apply zoning to the area. Area A only, similar requirements, no additional personnel or equipment needed, comprehensive plan update, apply zoning. Engineering and streets, for area A and B, we have 1 street department laborer, 76 street lights. Half of those would go in year 1, the other half in year 2. Area A only, 1 street department laborer and 28 additional street lights, all in year 1. Now, sanitation and environmental services, this is separate and apart from the general fund here, but that's on slide 19. Areas A and B, a driver, a laborer, a rear end loader, and a knuckle boom, and trash bags. Area A only, 1 laborer and trash bag because of minimum amount of development and population in there. Next, we're going to get to the financial data, so we can go straight to the general fund table for study areas A and B. You've got it. And at the top, we have the revenues estimated, and we projected out 5 years into the future. General property taxes, 26.63 mils. We use a 95% collection rate just as a safety factor. Franchise fees, license and permits, intergovernmental. And then you can see where we, on the intergovernmental, we put in the sales tax and the county road tax. Those two add up to that $180,573, but we break it out so you can see it. And then we have fines and forfeitures. So you can see the projected revenues from year 1 through year 5. Expenditures, we have those broken down. The bold numbers would be the total for that department. The lighter numbers, the gray numbers would be the subcategories, such as general government. We have operating costs, property tax collection fee, and redistricting. So you can see how that adds up. Police department, operating costs, year 1 personnel, you can see that's over $260,000.
the equipment and uniforms, as well as animal control. The fire department, we just add additional operating expenses in there based on the dwelling units and the structures in the area. Community development, we have our operating costs, updating the comprehensive plan for this area and applying zoning. Engineering and streets, we have our operating costs, personnel, equipment, uniforms, and our street lights. And then we have a civil defense and warning system, the code red. So you can see we have an excess or deficit. If it's a red number, it's a deficit. You can see year one is a positive $62,000. Year two, and I believe that actually that red number was supposed to be a black number. They
I was
just
gonna
didn't-
say,
yeah,
that-
it's supposed to be a black
That
number.
don't look right.
That doesn't look right. And I was seeing it didn't total up correctly, but that red is supposed to be a black
Yeah.
in year two.
Yeah, but
It's all in the black.
I'm wondering,
Yeah.
because I read it, I thought, wow.
Yeah, well,
No, that's just supposed to be a
a
black
little
number.
subtraction. Okay.
That didn't get by us, did it? And so you can see it's in the black all the way across as far as the revenues exceed expenditures. And then on the very bottom, like an ending fund balance, that's where it has cumulatively over 5 years, which would, at the end of year 5, would be 1.2 million. Now, obviously, it's gonna make a decision on, it's gonna be impacted by decisions made around this table on your tax levy, what personnel, equipment, how the area grows out there. But in my opinion, these are conservative. This is not me sticking my neck out on any of these numbers. It is what it is, and I feel like they're very conservative and realistic numbers, and that's what you're paying me to provide you with, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, Area A alone, you can see we built in the same methodology. We adjusted the assessed values, the sales tax, the ad valorem taxes, the departmental request for providing the services.
That number should be in black too.
It should be in black too.
We carried all the way across.
This table was taken and converted, the prior one, but that one should be in black as well.
Yes.
And you can see it's right at,
Black is good.
The black is good. That's
black
right.
is good. You can see that at the end of year 5, it's about $500,000. A and B together, because you have commercial areas and additional assessed value, is about 1.2 million year 5. Area A alone is about $500,000.
I think that goes back to that retreat, because that's a very expensive.
Yeah. Yes. And now, the next are really 2 demographic tables. You know, when we were going through all of the graphics as far as the total population, dwelling units, racial composition, land use makeup, all of that is on this. We have a slide here for the city, Area A, Area B, and the combined areas, as well as the combined city and study areas, so you can see that. The next slide would be just the city and Area A alone, where you can see that as well. But we've already gone through that graphically. Now, the next slide is water and sewer plan cost estimates that Mr. Andrew Nagel provided us. Annexation study areas A and B for fire protection. You can see area A and B broken out for a total of $2.7 million. For sewer, area A is $726,000. Area B is $0. It's already served according to Mr. Nagel there. Now, the next few slides, I don't think. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, yes.
And I'm jumping a little bit here, but.
No problem.
I know that a good bit of, well, all of that property is certificated for other entities for provision of water. And I understand that Clayton Village Water Association is in process of providing sewer to a good many of the things that are in Area B. How does that affect our requirement to provide sewer services when the Water Association is stepping forward to provide those sewer services?
It would relieve you of the requirement of providing that sanitary sewer is what it would do. And right here, I just flipped to the sewer certificated area, and I guess you're referring to this East Active Hall wastewater district located here in part of it?
No, it's, the Clayton Village, well, I thought it was Clayton Village Water Association, which I would make a little further west in there.
But
Let's look at the water.
even so, it would be treated just like we have to treat a water association,
Now,
right?
here's
They're an
Clayton
entity.
Village. Okay, now these maps are based from, we received from data from the state. It's called MARIS, Mississippi
Right,
Automated
right.
Resources Information System. And that's where we have gotten these boundaries from. We haven't read all these legal descriptions and all that. We have just provided what they furnished to us.
But if what I'm hearing anecdotally is that the Water Association is providing sewer services, we won't.
You wouldn't have to duplicate that, no, that's exactly, if they were providing adequate sewer to the area, they could continue to do that.
Okay.
Is it treated just like a water association? It is a separate entity that the PSC controls and
That's-
has, okay, so it would be the same sort of, unless they wanted us to take them in for whatever reason, then
That's
they
it.
would stand alone.
That's exactly right. First of all, on day one of annexation, obviously, the water system, the sewer systems would be operating that day. If they wanted to give or sell, or you all reached an agreement in some way to purchase or take over some areas, that's one thing. If they, and you all agree they want to continue to provide water service and sewer service, they can continue to do that. You see that all over the state, where water and sewer utilities operate inside cities.
Well,
Madison,
we've got some
Ridgeland.
still,
Yes.
but, you know, and we've
Yeah.
taken some over.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
but-
an option.
Yes.
But it's not a
But
requirement
it's an
that you
agreement
do
that
that.
as
That's
long as
right.
they've got service.
Because Mike, they've got the certificates, right? And so long as they've got the certificates, then the city can't do
Overreach.
it if they wanted to.
Let me tell you, as long as they have that certificate, they have the exclusive right to serve water, to sell water, and to provide sanitary sewer. Now, and one thing we'd want to do is protect our fire rating. If they don't have adequate lines and we need to add a fire line or a fire hydrant somewhere to protect our fire rating and provide a fire service, every now and then you see that come into play. But they have the exclusive right to sell water and to serve sanitary sewer.
Well, and the fire
So what-
protection is what you've got here.
That's correct. That's what Mr. Nagel put in here for fire.
What does come into play mean? Like, you're saying we have the right to provide that service for our fire rating?
Fire lines, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
not
sir.
part of the certificate.
And that's
Right.
really a
Right, so we
legal
would have
question, but my knowledge as a planner and what I've seen around the state, should be able to, they should allow you to run a fire line in there, provide fire protection, but not sell water. They have the exclusive right to do that.
And it would depend, whether or not we could just put a fire hydrant in there would depend on the size of their water line, wouldn't it, Mr. Camp? Is that correct? Do we know what the size of their water lines are out there? By any chance?
That's,
We can find out. And I want to ask you another question on the sewer, just to clarify,
okay.
because I think they have sewer, access to sewer, they don't have any treatment capabilities.
Who
How does
treats
that
it?
work?
Yeah.
Where's it go?
They go back through the university, back to the.
Oh, but it's still coming to, oh, interesting, okay.
And I don't know how you did your study, when you say that is separate, so that's a charge, but it it could be an impact. The only reason I'm just asking the question, you might want to look at that. Because that facility is a regional treatment plant, so everything that comes to the university and this operation.
So there's sewer out there right as we speak?
Well.
In parts.
Not
In
everywhere.
parts. Pardon?
So not everywhere in Big,
But
just
in
some
parts.
Yeah.
So, but right now, that sewer is getting into a system. I assume it would come through some type of master meter where the city would bill them for treating their sewer?
Hello, Mr. Camp.
I hope so.
I would hope so. And if that's the case, not,
There's arrangements from this state.
Okay, but that's an arrangement that we
And I'm
have.
not sure if we're working on the meter aspect, but typically those are based on the water flows. You're right, that's outside of that. So this brings on just a little bit of
Yeah.
more consideration. No reason I raised that.
but and that's a good question, but in general, because we don't know all the variables as we stand here right now, but in general, is that they will continue to operate as they do. If they expand a sewer system and ultimately the city of Starkville is treating that, you should rightfully bill them for treating their sewer.
And they did ask, and there is a charge based on the gallons. So so,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
I know.
Just like most cities have their sewer rates to individual homes or businesses based on the water usage. Now, when you have a public entity such as a sewer district, sometimes you can meter the actual sewer flow because you don't have individual access to the individual meters out there. So it just depends, but that could be addressed. We don't know all the answers to that, but it could be addressed. Now, it shouldn't be an issue. You'd be able to address that. The next slides we've seen before, I just left them in here on any financing options, the impact on 28, fire insurance rate comparison for homeowners on frame, 29 is masonry, and then you have a land use map. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn the meeting back over to you, and I'll be glad to answer any further questions you all may have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slaughter, appreciate that. Do we have any specific questions, Mr. Slaughter, while we've got him standing in front of us? Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. I have, and it's on the agenda, we'll go through the agenda here in a few minutes, but one of the things I did was it just basically said that, if we wish to proceed, if the board wishes to proceed, that what we would do is direct you and Mr. Latimer to draft an annexation ordinance. Is that an accurate?
That's correct.
Okay.
We'd have to have a legal description of the annexation areas as well as the resultant enlarged city. I work with Mr. Latimer, and oftentimes we know how they have to be done and put those together, maybe work with your city engineer if necessary, provide those to you to insert into an annexation ordinance and get it before the board. Now, since we're talking about that, that would be the process is if you directed us to move forward, we'd have to generate that ordinance. We'd bring it back. It would be on the agenda in one of your regularly scheduled meetings, and you jump in anytime. At your regularly scheduled meetings, it would come up, obviously, there'd be a motion, a second, and then a vote, and any discussion, and then a vote on that, whether to adopt that ordinance. That would be the first official step, in my opinion, by the city of Starkville to really annex 1 square inch. Right now, all we're doing is studying. We're not annexing 1 square inch.
And Mike, let me jump in real quick.
Sure.
Just to clarify, this ordinance would be like any other ordinance. So we would have the 2 public hearings on it, which would give the public a full-throated discussion on it. And then if the board were to approve the ordinance, then we file the petition in Chancery Court and have the hearing in front of the Chancellor. So that's another airing out of the issue.
Right, but also, I would want us to have plenty of discussion about it and to have opportunities for meetings and that sort of thing. The ordinance minimum requirement from our policy standpoint
Right.
is to have 2 public hearings. But then I also think, opportunities to go visit with neighborhoods and that sort of thing that are impacted would be an appropriate thing to do. So we
Yeah.
won't do this that quickly.
And if I may, since you all have retained me, and I think you'd want to hear this, especially after making the presentation and talking about the process. We've studied a large area for our productive meetings. We've modified that to what we have before us today. Conducted the analysis, demographics, financial, looked at water and sewer and all. There's 12 indicia or indicators of reasonableness that the Supreme Court has come up with over the years in hearing appeals on annexation cases, and that's what the Chancery Court looks at. Need to expand, path of growth, need for municipal services, the impact on minority voting strength, any natural barriers, financial ability, need for planning and zoning, fair share, are you benefiting from your proximity to the city without paying your fair share of taxes, and any other indicia. I may have left out 1 or 2 of them there. But in my opinion, in this analysis and reviewing those 12 indicia of reasonableness, number 1, I think is either or both of them together is still a conservative annexation when you look at the overall size of the city, land area, square miles, population and all, when you compare to it. I think it's a very reasonable annexation based on those 12 indicia. I think it's an area that needs the municipal services, police, fire, planning and zoning, not to make light of that, obviously public safety is important, but planning and zoning, I think this is a critical or an important area for the future, long-term future of the city of Starkville. Right now, and a lot of that footprint is already in place without planning and zoning. And in my opinion, it's certainly in need of that as well as the full city services. So
Pretty much
it's
check
my
all those
recommendation-
boxes, do we not?
Pardon?
Do we
Oh,
not
yes.
check most of, if not all of those
Yes,
boxes?
yes, ma'am, certainly do.
Alderman Carver, I saw your hand.
Well, the only thing, I guess, not having the police and fire chiefs here, questions I have for them, so I'll save that for Tuesday night, but on the demographic side, I guess you're talking about 0.5%, and the mayor alluded to this earlier, but is that even frowned, it's a 0.5% decrease in minority voting population, so is that even, is that a small
That is,
number?
that is small. Now, I'm not gonna speak for any group, but in my opinion here, that is very small and has very minimal impact at all. So in my opinion, it's not an issue at all.
And those are the kind of things that are gonna change anyway when we do the next census. The percentages are likely gonna move up and down, and we're comparing this to a 2010
That's
number.
right. Even without annexation, the point you're making, even without annexation, they've likely changed more than that over the 10 years, one way or the other, who knows? This annexation, because of the minimal amount of population compared to the city, is very minimal change at all. And it's reasonable and acceptable and not an issue in my opinion. Yeah.
And then the second thing, I only received about, I mean, of course, Ward 1 being on the west side, I've received the one email I think we all received from a gentleman on Blackjack trying to be excluded.
I think you already is.
Yeah.
He already is
Yeah.
on 2306
Yeah.
Blackjack. Have y'all have y'all reached out to the neighborhoods in any way, or?
I've got one.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before. This gentleman came to the last meeting that you came to. That's up there in Area A at Highway 12 overpass.
That big salmon
And he-
area.
Yeah, and he's got I talked to him again this morning, and he's got an area that he used predominantly for hunting. I'd like to see that cut out if we could, before we move forward on Tuesday.
Where's that at?
And he's got a map that he said he can get to you, or the mayor, whoever it might be, to cut that area out. What's that at?
Where's it at on the map? You know where, can you show us or where it's at?
He's given it to me, I believe it's on the,
Here.
I believe it's on the other side of the lake, down, closer to the bypass.
Close to about.
Yeah, somewhere in that lake
Somewhere in
area.
here.
And he's even told me, I think the lake is part of his property. And he's told me he doesn't even mind if the lake is taken in. And our conversation was basically that we could still encompass, he believes that we could still encompass the overpass, but exclude his property.
This gentleman's got the real thin slice that goes,
Yes.
oh, yeah.
And is there another way to accomplish that
Or is there another way to
without having
accomplish
to redraw the lines by excluding areas over certain acreage
I've
for
had
certain purposes?
cities, such as the city of Batesville, and I believe Brookhaven did, prepared an ordinance that, in general, that mentioned a specific piece of property, but put specifics on it if you have a certain size, so many acres of property, and it met certain requirements that you could utilize that for hunting, discharge of firearms. We also had cities where if a city has a no burn ordinance and you annex some rural areas and they want to burn, when they clean up some debris and brush, that they're able to do that. So
You're basically saying creating some type of formula into the ordinance that basically would say, not in the ordinance, or what, I mean, at what process?
not the annexation ordinance, it would be a general ordinance adopted by the city. Now, you could put it in there, I guess, it's more of a legal question.
Well, then you-
And Mr. Miller and I talked a little bit about that, and my opinion on that is it might make the annexation ordinance a little more hairy than it needs to be.
That's
Yes,
right,
I
I
agree.
think it would just be a general ordinance, not an
And I could get
annexation ordinance.
behind that if we could do it all in
Sure,
one.
and I'm happy to do that, because I think if we, to be very candid, if we start peeling one off and another off and another,
Who's next?
yeah, we're gonna have difficulty, but I am happy to address, if you've got over 3 acres or 5 acres or whatever, that you can feel free to hunt, and that's gonna be throughout the town. If we've got areas, to
Yeah,
me,
it could
that's
apply
fair
to
around,
more-
all over the town.
It could apply to more than just this area, that's right.
And that's a figure we probably have to get with the Game and Fish Commission, legally, they're still gonna be liable, they're out there hunting, and they gotta know the parameters of whatever land you're hunting on. what's beyond.
Well,
what
but from
you're
the,
shooting
yeah,
and so
from
forth.
the city ordinance, though, I know we have no discharging of weapons within the city limits.
yeah.
And so we can manage that ourselves. That's ours to do.
An example of that would be, let's just say if they had 20 acres and 5 years from now, they decide to sell it, somebody subdivides it,
Exactly.
no more hunting.
That's right.
Yeah, well, and we have lost whatever control we had over an area if we if we carve a large area out that's adjacent to the.
My
bypass.
problem with moving forward with this on Tuesday night, though, is that that doesn't give me the ability to protect my constituent who owns that property, if that makes sense. Meaning that we
Well,
don't have anything into
Let
fruition.
me tell you what I think about that, is if this board on Tuesday night says, let's move forward with preparing the ordinance. We'll be writing legal descriptions, preparing the ordinance. It's gonna take some time. It's not gonna happen in one day. It's gonna take at least a couple of weeks, maybe longer, to get those legal descriptions prepared. So,
I'm
but
happy-
Concurrently
I'm
with
happy
that. we
to
could-
add to the agenda that we call for a public hearing on an ordinance to increase hunting.
And if we can do that
Sure.
and do it on a Mayor, if we can do that and get it on a timeline, and then I can I've had 2 areas since we've started. I've had, for me, it's been, and we've talked about this, but the Blackjack Road area, and I've had this gentleman at the top at Highway 12, that those are my 2 areas that I've said I'd like to be gone.
yeah.
So, I mean, if we can come to some compromise or something, that there is some conclusion that everybody's happy and this gentleman can still hunt on his land, and then subsequently we come to a solution that, where it is 15 years from now, he decides, I'm gonna sell my land
Right.
and they're gonna subdivide it, and we can get that and we can do it right and everybody's happy, then I wanna take the time and do that. If that makes everybody
Sure.
happy and that's smart planning, and if that's what y'all are telling me, I understand. I just feel like I have a duty to protect my constituent and the things that he's invested in this community, and those are the things that he wants to continue to do. So if we could do that and get some formula together that does that, I'm totally fine with
Can
that.
Chris research and see what that magic number of acreage would be as far from a safety and liability standpoint?
Absolutely.
For the city?
And I'll ask the chief to take a look at it as well. And to be quite honest, when we discussed this before, I thought part of his problem was that he'd been cut in half. So part of what we had done was reached out and gotten all of it so that it wasn't parsing out his property. So I misunderstood that it was a carve out, because I thought we had talked about the fact that, if we did a hunting, something that still allowed him to do what he wanted to do on his
Right.
property. And that was one of the things I heard from some of those folks down south, is they wanted to be able to hunt on their property. And I'm going,
Right.
I have no problem with that. From my perspective, if you've got a big enough piece of property that it makes sense for you to do that, then,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's not a problem, so.
And I think too, as long as we can have somebody, the gentleman who it is, if we can have a meeting with him.
Sure.
And just sit down and say, hey, this is what it's gonna look like, this is what we're trying to do to appease, so that we're planning in the right direction, because I think the gentleman's well aware what's happening. I mean,
Yeah.
he knows he's close to the city limits, so.
Okay, all right, sure.
And
Okay.
what I would recommend, if you're comfortable with this would be my thoughts, is we could move forward with preparing the legal descriptions and the ordinance. By the time the board gets around to adopting, potentially have some type of solution worked up on the hunting, or make some revisions of
Yeah.
some sort.
And I don't want to get to the situation where, we get to that point and there isn't some resolve to
Mhm.
that area.
Up to
I
what
think-
point
I think
can
they
we?
can go concurrent.
Right,
Slice
they
and
can go
dice.
concurrent, and we can, I just want to make sure that happens before we get to the point that we're going to move forward with annexation, so.
Mhm.
That's what I'm thinking too. We can
Um,
do the first one.
You could modify
say
the
anything, it's
boundary
fine.
even at that return date.
That's fine.
When you put on the proof. If you identify an area you're not gonna put on the proof, then it would automatically be cut out.
Okay.
So there are multiple timeline, or opportunities.
That sounds like sitting here right now, that, I'm fine with that plan.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Well, and it benefits other areas in the
Right.
city,
Yeah.
so.
Sure, we can do that, no problem. Okay, anything else from Mr. Slaughter while we got him standing in front of us? Okay, cool, thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And-
Mayor
Yes.
and board, what I will do is, there may be a little more discussion, these maps are a lot they're here a lot easier to read. I'll send these over to the side, leave them here.
That'd be
for
great.
reference If you'd like them.
That'd be great, thank you, and we'll let everybody know if they want to see them, they can come up to the board, or to the room here and see them. I've got an easel that we'll put that on, and Joel will take that PowerPoint and put it on the website for us as a separate, as well as part of the Facebook, so they can have, the verbal to go with it. He's gonna come out of that now. Okay, all right, cool, well, thank you again, we appreciate
Thank
you
you.
making this trip down.
Appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the city, and a lot of good questions and all, and certainly if you have any more, you all know how to reach me, and we look forward to moving forward, hopefully. Should
Thank
the
you.
board so desire.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All righty. Now, y'all had a couple of meetings where it was very light. This one is not one of them. So, we have minutes, Chris, those are all good?
They're ready.
All right. And if anyone has I realize we've taken a while on this and people are probably ready to go. So if anybody wants to jump in there, any reason for not putting those minutes on consent?
Let's just wait on, out of respect. Alderman Perkins, I'll wait on those, just the minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, I'll be making an introduction of our new police officer, Ms. Bibbs, and then we're making a presentation or an acknowledgement to Planet Recess for the Moncrief Park Playground equipment, which they got us. All we had to do was do an install, so it was an extremely beneficial arrangement with them, and we really appreciate them, so we'll be acknowledging them. Mr. Dumas is going to make his annual presentation to us on the SMART bus transportation system, and he's got to do a public hearing as a part of his grant requirement, so he will be there. And then we're going to have a presentation and introduction of Ms. Starkville, also under that public appearance heading. We've got two public hearings. One's the conditional use for the two dwellings, which is the Habitat for Humanity on Azalea Lane. And both of those went through P&Z with no issues, and the same is true for the conditional use for the dwellings in Pat Station Road and Garrett Road. Chris was there, and I'm correct, right? There were no issues
Unanimous approval. by
associated,
P&Z.
and those have to have public hearings, so.
Correct.
Okay, here comes me having more business than I know what to do with. The Retail Strategies contract is up. We share this with the CVB and with the partnership. Chris has looked at that contract. It is $15,000 a year, which is the city's part of that 3-year contract of $90,000. So I personally think that amount of money, it is worth the contacts that they have. I have talked to folks, and they have indicated that Retail Strategies has been in contact with them, so I think there is value there that we don't necessarily have ourselves, so.
Maybe.
Alderman Miller.
What's, and I don't, this might be better for Tuesday night, I know they've come and talked to us, but we've actually physically seen.
They are coming on Tuesday.
Oh, they're coming
They
on
will be
Tuesday.
here.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
great. So
No.
we can talk to them.
Yes,
because That was
absolutely.
my question. I want to say that on an assumption of,
Yes.
because we've had them for 3 years now,
Yes,
to say, what have we done in 3 years?
Yes.
That's kind of just the big
and they are
question.
coming Tuesday night.
I see value in that.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
excellent, good, well, we'll look forward to visiting with him. This one is, I think Dr. Prince has already submitted her letter of interest, but she was, if you recall, was serving a shortened term. So her term is now coming to an end, and this is an opportunity for us to put out letters of interest. She clearly is still interested and has submitted that letter already.
Consent.
But in terms of following the protocol.
Can we consent?
Sure, yes.
I was fine with
Just to
anything other than
advertise,
the
we're
minutes.
just going to advertise. just to
Right.
Yeah, it's just to
yeah.
advertise for letters of interest, so. And then we've got a job description for Municipal Judge Pro Tem. Now, a number of years ago, I talked to Dr. Favor, to Judge Favor when he was our judge, and this was not something he wanted to entertain. Judge Kelly, however, is interested in having the opportunity to have someone who is, if nothing else, raring to go, on standby, if you will. There's a job description that goes with it. There is a cost that is statutorily directed as being whatever the hourly rate of the current judge is would be what you would pay someone. Judge Kelly has said that he doesn't think he's submitted a letter that'll be in the packet. He said he doesn't think it'll be any more than, I don't know, maybe 10 times a year, if even that. But anyway, he was comfortable with the idea of having someone designated who would be prepared to jump into that, so yes.
Well, this is I guess other than Starkville, I've been asking around, it's pretty common practice in most
It is.
municipalities. What type of situations would Judge Kelly have to recuse himself in?
Well, it's not so much recusal. If he were sick, or if he were out of town for whatever reason, or if there was a recusal element to it, and I don't know that he necessarily would have much going on unless somebody got clocked or something happened inside one of the restaurants that he owned, as opposed to, on the street outside, which I think was one of the points of
Just
discussion at
something
one
that
point. in time.
pertains to his personal
Yes,
business.
yes, but more likely it would be an illness or being absent, being out of town.
Or someone he needs.
Or someone he knew, that's
Right.
true, so, if that
It's
is.
not like it's pulled from his salary, it's paid extra from others.
Yeah, and we would be doing that anyway, if we didn't have somebody on site.
like for vacation
We'd still
or
have, to
something.
yes, we'd still have somebody, and we've done it in the past, we've used, I think Judge Haug has come in and done it. Judge Carpenter has come in and done it, so,
Because that's the statute. If the
Right.
municipal judge can't handle it, and there's not a municipal judge pro tem, it goes to the justice court judge
Right.
that's available at the time.
right, exactly. So this would just be allowing us to have someone who is aware that they would be, available and participate in this, so.
We do, let me clarify, and we paying this person for their
Yes,
time? Okay.
yes. And it would be, again, at the hourly rate that Judge Kelly's paying.
Okay.
So, any reason not to put that, it's just an advertising. Any reason
Consent.
not to do- Okay, thank you. Okay, monthly sanitation rate, we know that's not going on consent, but let's talk about it. We have not raised our sanitation rates since 2013, so we're going on 6 years. Residential, we've not raised our commercial rates since 2012, going on 7 years. Obviously, costs have gone up, but this is not on the agenda because I'm concerned about that, although I probably should. This is on the agenda because I'm concerned about our ability to meet our obligation as it relates to paying for the landfill, and the requirement that we mitigate the encroachments that we have. So we've paid for land, and we're going to have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million obligation that we're going to, it's going to cost us to put that landfill back in a situation where MDEQ is satisfied that we've met their requirements. So that is part of what this is that makes it more immediate. But the reality is that we haven't raised in a while. We've raised our sanitation compensation. We've have trucks, the cost has gone up. So all of those things are something that we should have been considering all along. But this one is particularly for that obligation that we have to MDEQ and having our sanitation meet the expense of that mitigation. Alderman Sisdrum.
And I would like to propose that it's not just a rate increase with the sanitation fees, but to clearly delineate it on the bill as a landfill fee, so that it's identified. And when we have fully satisfied those expenses, if a future board decides that they don't feel that a fee is any longer appropriate, they can address that, but it doesn't get just buried in the sanitation fee.
Okay, that's certainly.
How can you word that in this document, that it rolls off at the end of the 1.5 million?
I'm not saying it rolls off, I'm saying that would be a future board's decision, so they may want to keep it.
But we can
and
dedicate
call
it
it something else.
We can
so.
dedicate it to landfill. Alderman Miller.
Is there something in our packet that will tell us just where we came up with the $1.50?
How much it's gonna generate and so forth?
Yeah, just where'd we come up with that number?
Probably as much as anything, it was just from casual conversations that we had, but looking at.
During our budget.
During our budget
meetings.
reviews, and we're looking at about $1.5 million.
That's what it would produce?
Well, over time,
Okay.
whatever we do, over time would produce that much, but the question is how quickly do you want to produce it? It's enough money that we could potentially go out and bond it with all the bond issuance costs and that
Right.
sort of thing, but I think we can do an interfund borrowing with the general fund and the water department and not have to go out into the bond market. We would pay
Right.
those funds an interest rate. We would set up a payback schedule just like we were negotiating with somebody external.
Okay.
The $1.50 would give us about $200,000 a year in residential monies. The commercial, and I'll confess, the commercial confuses me a little more.
It's a different rate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think would probably generate about 75,000. So depending on how long we wanted to finance this, it could be 5 years or 8 years, somewhere in that range.
So that's what it's based on?
Yes.
Essentially, it's
Yes.
trying to, okay,
Yep, just to cover that.
okay.
And we had mentioned this when we spoke, exhausting all avenues as far as potential brownfield money if we've got.
Well, yes, and I'm gonna get with John Cunningham
See if there's anything out there to
with
help.
Neil Schaefer, sure, and see if there's an opportunity for us to explore that, but clearly that'd be a while coming down the pipe. And MDEQ, the only reason I think we are not receiving difficult responses from them or letters from them is that we are showing that we are moving forward, we're making progress. And so in mitigating this, it's probably gonna be maybe 12 months. So you're looking at a very short time frame in which we are gonna make this right. So that cost is gonna come long before we'd be able to recoup through the fee increases over a period of time, obviously. So I think it's gonna be a, you know, that kind of cost, it's gonna come fairly quickly.
Will the county be contributing as well?
Yes, and I've got to go to the county and share this with them. I don't know how much they'll be contributing.
Do we
But
have
we
some
have
sort of agreement
We
with
do
them?
have an agreement with them. One is for capital expenditures. I don't think that agreement outlines anything associated with kind of the issue that we've got going now, but I'm sure it falls under, from a legal perspective, I'll let Mr. Latimer kind of take a look at it with that eye in mind and see where that would fall in terms of working with the county on how we will share that expense. But I have mentioned it to their legal counsel, and I have mentioned it to Supervisor Trainer, President of the board, and I believe I also ran into Supervisor Miller at one point in time and mentioned it to her. So the casual conversations, but not formal conversations as of yet. Alderman Sistrum?
And unrelated, I've called Columbus to see what their residential sanitation fees are. They're $17 right now.
One day a week?
I think they get two days a week. I tried to call West Point, but I haven't been able to get anybody to answer the phone. And I haven't left a message, so no one has called me back.
Okay.
Leave this on consent.
Oh, no, it absolutely is not going on consent. Was no concern about that. Any other questions that I need to?
And there's no question that we have to do this work. I mean, we are going
Oh,
to have to.
yeah,
do
no,
this
there's
work.
no question about that.
And our exposure is that if we don't do it and do it timely, we will start to incur fines and penalties.
Yes, absolutely.
In addition to the actual work.
Yes.
What type of fine structure is it? I mean, how much are you talking?
It's government, I'm
Yeah,
expecting it's big.
I don't
Hundreds of thousands, millions?
even want to know, because I don't
We
want
don't
us to get to
find
that
out.
point. You know, I
So
want
basically, as long as you're showing good faith that.
If we can
we're
avoid it,
working
we don't
towards
want to go down that road.
absolutely. Would you agree, Mr. Latimer's been on some of those phone calls. Would you agree with that?
I would, and the latest progress that we've made is we've acquired the northern track that we needed, and this week we acquired the eastern track that we needed. So we've been able to tell MDEQ that we're taking concrete steps to go forward, and they've held off on writing any type of formal notice in response to that. So
Right.
those steps are being made.
I mean, we've not hidden it, we've acknowledged it, we've said we're going to do whatever we need to do to get in compliance. So, you know, from that perspective, we want to make sure we continue down that path so that we don't incur any additional costs associated with, other than making it right.
Right.
Okay. All right, anything else? Okay. The other one is, I put on here setting an in-person interview for Dr. Simon Kim, who we interviewed via Skype. I'm still excited about that.
Consent.
Oh, all right, lovely.
What
Okay.
number is that?
E.
Did you go back and take a look at it?
I have not had the opportunity. I was gonna ask board members, you and I spoke about it briefly.
We did,
But
we
what
did.
really just made him stand above the rest? I mean, what is his background? I will go back and watch it this week. I don't have time. But what was his background? I think you and I spoke briefly about it.
Yeah.
He said he'd answer.
He just, this is just my personal, I
Yeah.
haven't talked to him, but he just seemed to be, clearly had a strong resume, seemed to have the educational background, certification background, and just seemed to be competent and filled with the knowledge, especially listened to Alderman Walker and some of the technical things that he talks about. He had great answers through all of those, seemed personable. One big thing for me, and that's why I asked that question, I think probably for all of us, but you asked him about management, managing the department, managing personnel as being part of that. I thought he gave a great answer to that, and connecting the dots. I think Alderman Walker asked him about the code rewrite, and he provided a lot of good information with that. I thought his questions at the end, just talking about what our goals and objectives were, he had great questions for us, and we relayed that to him, and so it seemed like a really good fit. And he's got a gaudy resume, so it's a fat resume.
Where's he at in his career as far as?
Yeah, and he's been 30 years, and I think he's managed up to
20-something people?
No, it was over 100 people.
Yeah,
That was the other gentleman.
Yeah.
But it was over 100
Yeah.
employees at one time, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's been over some very large departments, and
Large budgets.
yeah, for me, at this point.
Grant,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was
Yeah,
really
grants, I
important.
mean, he touched it all. I was talking to Navrit, he has human resource certifications on top of planning certifications, doesn't it, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
here, let
I
me,
mean,
let
he
me give
just-
you a funny, I was telling the department heads that he was better qualified than Nav in human resources. I was quickly corrected.
put you on blast.
He's got higher certification in human resources than Nav does, but, yeah, he has a very broad,
Yeah.
very broad.
And he seemed to have a mind for research, to me, with, meaning he's going to be up to par on national trends. So he seemed to have I think he's always been a practitioner, but he had a little bit he had some academic journals in there that he's been in, and it was a very diverse person. He seemed like he could attack anything. It was a good interview.
And these are less tangible, less things that you can reduce to the resume, but he was very straightforward. He was very prepared, I thought.
At ease.
And
He knew about our community
yes,
already. Yeah.
yes.
He did his
And
homework.
he had, and he had a good energy level.
Yes.
So I feel like
Good way to
he's,
put it, yeah.
I feel like he's
Thank you.
gonna be able to
I
fit in
said,
that
I
way.
use
Did you want-
smiley, but
Wayne?
energy level is good too, yeah.
Yeah, consent is great, wonderful. The next one is the Mayor's Youth Council to attend the MML, okay?
You know, I'm on that.
I know
I'm
you
a member
will.
of that.
I
That's
know. All right, and the other one, we obviously won't put this one on consent, but this is what I referenced, that we would at least move forward either with A or A and B, and that's on there that way for that discussion.
Do we want to add a second ordinance?
Well, that,
to-
Yeah.
yes, I was gonna do that, but I was gonna put that under board business.
Okay.
I'm really,
You'll take that.
I'll
one.
feeling
spear-
pretty
I'll
stacked
spear-
up.
I'll spearhead that under. and,
Thank you.
I'll get all
Okay,
the hunters on my head.
all right, now, on this one, this
They
came
got their own.
kind of late in the day, the other day. Bill Webb, who is president of the Golden Triangle Regional Solid Waste Authority, and Jimmy Sloan, who's the executive director, have said that there is a move afoot to allow private waste haulers to develop their own private waste landfill area. And that would take it away from those of us who have made a landfill authority. And so he is asking us to come out in opposition to that Senate bill. And I told him that we would be willing to entertain that, so he's gonna be there. Consent?
I would.
Okay, that,
I'm
any,
not opposed.
okay.
I
No,
was
I think
thinking it feels
no,
different.
I think I didn't know if anybody wanted more explanation than that, but roughly it is to keep from undermining our solid waste authority, of which we're a member, so. All right, leaving mayor's business. This is Mr. Richardson, who is the only applicant for this position, so consent for that one, thank you. And Alderman Sistrunk, do you want to take the ad hoc recycling?
Yes,
Committee discussion?
yes, I would like, with the board's permission, obviously, to form an ad hoc committee, a small committee, 5 to 7 members, hopefully, if you have names, I'm happy to entertain them, to do a review of our current recycling practices, do an analysis of what best practices in the industry are these days, because the market for recyclables and how recycling is handled is changing rapidly. And then come back to the board with a report and potentially recommendations for things that we could do in a budget neutral fashion to improve our recycling process.
I'd like to reserve at least a spot or two, just from Ward 1. I know through the next door app, we've had a lot of discussion on
Have you?
days of pickup, and that turned from, I believe, one neighborhood to most of the entire community, but a lot of concern over the number of days of pickup, and some people generally recycle, so it's different
Sure.
for each person.
Sure.
Yes, I'll definitely like the
I
spot.
think it's time to take a step back and look at what we're doing and what will work and what won't work. And
If I normally have to either, I feel like if I have somebody call me about sanitation, it's about recycling. So I'm.
And it's
all
gonna be
for it.
time limited, so I don't want this to be an ongoing perpetual process. So I'd say whoever does it needs to be able to be committed to do about a 3-month report.
Could each ward just have one appointed person?
I'd rather keep it open if we could, and I'm not gonna say it has to be only 5 to 7 members. I was just trying to keep it small enough to be manageable.
Okay, do you want to we put
I
the
need to.
appointing, but at some point, we want to bring it back with names to put on there? You just want to let Alderman Sistrunk be the
Trust me.
point
Or do you
person?
wanna-
Yeah, I just, one of those where
Okay.
all of a sudden we have 20 people on there.
Yeah,
That's
no,
right.
Yeah, do we want to make sure we?
Okay. Well,
Up to
do we
seven.
want to?
Up to 7,
Okay.
and
7
I
max
just
or
prefer
something.
not to make it ward specific, because there may not be anybody in
You
Ward
can either
3
put
that's interested.
5 to 7 on there if you want to.
Okay,
Just
of up to 7 members?
And I may have your one, and I may have your one
Right.
already,
Okay.
as people
All
who've
right.
talked to me, but,
Um,
yes, please, let me know
I
if you
got a
have a name.
couple that could. yeah.
Okay.
I'll take 2
Love
of yours.
to- Would love to bend
Okay,
our
so
ears about.
do we want to put that on consent with a addition of up to 7
Yes.
as a number?
Sure.
Okay, all right. And then the last one, Chris, I may let you roll into this one, but this is, Alderman Vaughn has said I could put this under his heading. This is the old mobile home at West Side and Reed Road has been vacant now for quite some time, and Mr. Farmer, who has been incredibly diligent in our community in bringing projects, has someone who's interested in doing a project not unlike the Reed Road development, if y'all remember that one. And this was sort of an updated version of that. I believe you visited it, right? There's one similar, okay, in New Albany. And so this is that similar kind of development, and we need, in order to facilitate the developer, we need to adopt a concerted community revitalization plan. And Chris, you've looked at it, right?
And amended it. This was language that was proposed to us that the developer needs to put in his application package to get funding for the project.
Yeah.
And it's just a quick little plan. It's about 7 pages, and it just talks about Starkville honoring community quality of life and adopting building codes and enforcing those codes. It says nothing that's not already in our ordinance. It's just all right there in about 5 pages. So the people who are funding him can see that we're a
Right.
good community to build in.
Right.
So that's what
Right.
it is.
He did a project in Oxford also, with single family homes, and in New Albany, the project they done in New Albany was condos. I mean, they was great, they looked nice, but I love the project, but like I'm gonna talk to him again. Only thing I kind of dislike about the project, not the project itself, electric and gas. He want to put electric in all the single family homes.
As opposed to gas, or as opposed to both?
Gas.
Gas.
Yeah, I'm gonna try him to get to do both electric and gas.
He almost has got to do electric in Port, I mean, you've got to have electric in some of
He
it.
got electric. He want to put
Oh,
electric.
he
in
doesn't
all.
want to do gas.
He wants to do electric in all,
Oh,
and no
electric.
gas.
Oh, okay, and no gas.
And so,
Okay,
that's
well, we
what
should,
I'm with you
yeah,
on that.
yeah, well,
That's-
we, yeah,
I'm gonna talk to him some more about that one.
okay,
Would
all right,
this-
but in terms of adopting this.
Yeah, I'm great
okay.
for it. I'm great.
All right.
That's probably, like you said, that probably been there for a long time empty. They gonna do 36 first and then come back a few years later and do another 36 because they can't do it 36 at a time.
Okay, so they're phasing that in, but it is, the Reed Road project has been a very good, development for us.
And it's around more other single family homes and right across off the street from the nursing home and
Right.
almost all the single family homes. Right in the area.
Yeah.
So it's a great development.
Super.
Because you got Reed Road on down there, but Reed Place rather.
Right.
You got Reed Place on down there.
It's been a really good development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
This
Okay.
addresses a low to moderate priced home that we have gaps in here in the community. Is that?
yeah, it starts at you got to be you got to be qualified. Qualification started at 42,000, and then you can't make more than 42,000. You can't make less than 20,000.
Okay.
But once you start working, if just say you start making 50, 60, 100,000, it doesn't change. It stays.
They're not
the
gonna
same.
throw you out.
They're not gonna throw you out. They're not
Oh,
gonna
that's
change.
good.
They're not gonna change the mortgage. Not what it start at 600, and that's what it will remain, regardless of how much you make it once you be qualified. It doesn't change.
There's a real need in the community for
Yeah,
for
it's a great
this.
need.
That's pretty cool. That's actually kind of a rent control if you get right down to it.
After
It's a
14,
good deal.
15 years, you got the option to buy.
That's right, I was gonna say, it's a good
Right.
deal on the back end, and you get credit for your rental payments and
Right.
equity to
And
buy
that is
on the
like
back
Reed,
end.
Reed Place.
It's like
It- yeah,
you can't
right.
charge no more than 70, you can't go no lower than 50.
No, that's great.
When you get a chance to buy after 14, 15 years.
Good deal.
I think it's a good
Excellent.
project.
Do you get a full credit for your monthly rental, or is it like incremental or
No,
percentage?
It's gotta
of-
be incremental.
I don't know
They
the
can
answer
do
to
it.
that, but you get some kind of credit.
Yeah.
He talked about it at P and Z, is the only reason I
Yeah.
have some knowledge
Oh,
of it.
interesting.
but, yeah.
You don't have to do no maintenance or nothing because they're gonna be taken care of for you.
That's
Well,
a big
From a rental
deal.
perspective, it should be, yeah.
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 all
Okay.
years, so.
Well, is
I think it's a
consent,
good
everybody comfortable with consent on that? Okay, and then Patrick, consideration of calling for public hearing to adopt an ordinance for hunting guidelines within the city limits or something like that?
I like that.
Sure.
Okay.
And I don't know, we don't have to deliberate on this right now, but the city of Oxford actually has done something recently. You can actually bow hunt.
Yeah, you need to check the
Inside.
archery versus.
Yeah, they've got like a deer hunting ordinance.
Rifle.
Yeah.
We'll check into that.
I don't know if that would, I mean, I want to just stick to what we're doing, but.
Okay.
We looked at that 3 years
Yeah, we
ago,
did.
4 years
Oh,
ago.
okay.
and-
We have to
and,
have a person designated for that.
And that didn't get
Uh,
any
There's
traction.
another personnel, and
Oh, okay.
they've got someone dedicated for that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Check into some type of governor's annexation law. There was some discussion one time of, it is a certain acreage, but maybe 40. If it's some properties inside city limits that are long, I think it's 40 acres, but look into something. I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Okay.
40 acres before you can
Pretty
hunt?
big, that's pretty
Rifle.
big.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Archery
Gotcha.
is a different
Gotcha.
situation, but you definitely want to have enough property before you start shooting a high-powered rifle.
Sure, yeah, okay. All right, then we have,
We can put that on consent.
well, is that okay?
That's fine.
All right,
Once you
cool.
left it on, you left it off.
On?
You can put it on consent, that's
Okay,
fine, for
great.
right now, and if we need to take it off.
Sure. Okay, advertising for leasing the land for farmland at the airport. That's pretty standard for us, yes, okay. Planning, we've got a request. This goes with one of the ones that we're having the public hearing on.
Yeah.
Chris, we shouldn't put that one on consent because it goes with the public hearing one at the front. Is that correct? Is that Elaine?
It can go on consent because it doesn't have to have a public hearing. It's just the platting of that property
Okay,
after the
one does
conditional
not
use.
require the, I mean, we shouldn't do one, we don't need to do one first before we do.
I see what you're saying now. And yes, the platting was contingent on them being able to put
Right,
single-family homes in there.
Right, so
That's
we need
right.
to leave this one
That's
off until
correct.
until we hold that.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Engineering, city match for Mill Street, that is our resolution for that, consent on that one. And then claims docket, obviously not. And then mechanical service agreement with Breslin for City Hall, and that is for the elevator, that is for the air sea.
HVAC.
I knew that. The elevator is still in my brain.
The last time.
Yeah, really. Okay, HR is hiring. Any reason not to allow hiring? And then Stephanie to participate in the EAP program, which I think is a wonderful program.
Where's Shalimar?
Yeah,
currently?
is he coming back to us?
Yeah.
Where's he been?
Where's he been? Oh, I don't know
Ministry, I
that.
think.
Do you know him personally? Yeah, he's a great employee, so. I knew he left for a time, I think, but
He's been in ministry. so-
he's just an
Glad-
upbeat guy, good employee.
Okay. Well, glad to have him back.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we've got a lease purchase for the surveillance cameras.
What
Okay,
is
this,
What
oh,
are
this is,
they? Tell me
this,
about it.
this is those surveillance, well, remember we had them on loan?
Yeah.
Joel, back me up here. We had them on loan, one was at the park, and we still got that one down there.
That's right, there's one outside of City Hall,
Right.
there was one at J.L. King Park.
Right.
Those were demonstration units, and we have some existing cameras throughout town, but this is an expansion of that, and these are better cameras, they're newer cameras. This is phase one of a proposed camera project. We'd like to get up to 40 cameras over several years. And these are high definition surveillance cameras that they actually have 4 cameras per unit, so they can point in 4 different directions. Great for intersections and things like that. And we work closely with the police department to identify sort of the locations in each phase. And I'm going to show a map Tuesday night.
Okay.
And let you guys see, what we're thinking for this first phase. And of course, we'll welcome your input as we continue on through this process.
I know about 3 or 4 intersections. It'd be wonderful to have these things. With the U-turns on 12.
Right.
I may have
Oh,
one
well,
too.
They could be very beneficial, and we could charge a fee to insurance companies for downloads or something on that. I'm just saying they would be very beneficial from the legal side as well.
Well,
Give you some-
okay, I'm gonna.
That's just from my perspective.
I understand. Let me add one little piece to this. I know that the camps are being supportive and are paying, I think,
Yeah.
some in the Cotton District. I have selected, or tried to get with Joel on one for the Louisville Street, because I've got a camera system already on Louisville Street on my building, so that we'll have that access, and all of it ties back into the police. So, where they need to go first, since we don't have a wide range of things, the police, we're gonna let the police make that determination of the things that matter, of the things that are most needed to be surveilled, shall we
It
say.
could be
How many cameras is gonna be first, Joe?
There's 10 cameras.
10.
It's 10 units with 4 cameras on each unit.
Okay.
So,
An actor monitoring, who's monitoring? Is your office, police officer, where the screen
Well,
at?
the PD, nobody actively monitors the live feed, that would be a whole separate personnel situation. They are up all the time in police dispatch, so of course the dispatchers are doing their other duties, but they can keep sort of an eye on it. But the main lift that we get out of it is if there's an incident in one of these areas that we know about, we record all these feeds and we retain them. We have a retention policy. We back up that data as well, so we can go back and harvest that video whenever we need to, kind of check and see if we captured what we needed to capture.
Are these interchanges and intersections, or is this gonna be
Well, no.
bathrooms at the sportsplex?
Well,
or-
we want to put one back where we had it at JL King, that we had to take that one down, and then one at the park, and then some at the, well, you got your map.
That's
But
right,
anyway,
and I will show that map, and it'll show the locations. One is at the intersection of the entrance to the sportsplex, one is at JL King, there's, I think, one on Russell Street near the mill proposed, there's a couple in the Cotton District proposed as well, and then there's also some sort of on the outskirts of town, because one thing that PD is interested in is just sort of capturing the comings and goings. If we know something happened, we have a description of a vehicle that maybe perpetrated it, we can say, oh, they went out of town on 389 and we captured them here, they stopped at that stop sign and we got their tag. So that's kind of the idea as well.
yeah, no, I mean,
watch it.
Great.
it's wonderful.
That's great.
It's wonderful. So, and I'm really excited about it. Obviously, it's one of those things that allows us to be better in terms of being a safe community, and the police are all on board with it. So, I think it's a great thing. So, and we've got it in such a way that they're being leased as opposed to purchased, because the technology changes
Yes.
so often. So, I think we're doing it in a very fiscally responsible way. Okay. Any reason
Consent?
not to do consent on that one?
Consent.
All right, thank you. And this is our playground safety inspector course, consent for that, okay? And then the approval of the sponsorship packet. Chris, you've looked at that, and that looks good?
It
Okay.
does.
Consent.
All right, consent for that one. Police department, this is a justice grant, a JAG grant.
Consent.
Consent for sobriety testing training. And then under utilities, we've got, okay, Terry, we've got travel, and then these concrete precast things are for the Pleasant Acres development, so that's
Consent.
making those purchases.
How's that coming?
Terry, would you give a quick, how's that coming?
I
Pleasant
think
Acres?
we started with water, we started moved over into sanitation, on the sewer side. I'd say in spite of the rain and the mud and everything like that, the contractor's making good progress. We're getting some feedback from the community, but I'd say overall, they've been very supportive and understanding, and so we're pretty much on track with our schedule right now.
And when you come to individual driveways, you and I spoke, are y'all having to bore under, or are you tearing driveways up and repaving, or?
We're doing both. The contractor's looking at them, in some cases, it's gonna be a bore if it's water, very likely it may be a bore if it's gonna be sewer, it'll be the other way. It'll primarily be just because of the type of the construction, because we are typically going deeper on all of our work.
What type of percentage, I mean, because we're asking, obviously, for Green Oaks, but I mean, is it a 50-50, or is it?
It's not, it's individual case. And we actually did videotape every bit of this, and then we worked with a contractor to figure out what would be the selected deal. We are back on Green Oaks. We're actually doing line inspections right now to develop a plan that hopefully will be coming out the next 4 to 6 months, so we can give you some of that detailed numbers.
I think that's
Okay.
great.
But I think it would be kind of rough to say a percentage. I give you a percentage on Pleasant Acres, but I think in Green Oaks, it may look different.
It's wonderful the progress they're making, and with minimal issues. considering all that we're doing in there, so it's been really good. Any reason not to put any of these, on
Number
consent?
4 needs to come off.
Oh, number 4 needs to come off?
Off.
Okay, all right, we'll scratch to number 4, Lisa, make that adjustment.
Needed
Okay.
a second quote.
All right, and the other one is a task order for Garver on the well rehab. So without any further ado, I believe that carries us through the agenda.
Do you have something?
Nope, nothing for executive session, so. All right, thank you, everyone, we appreciate it.
Okay.
So adjourn the meeting until the 5th of February at 5:30.